I'm sure all of us have tried making our own Clash mini decks. Either it's some off meta strategy that only wins you a few games and then you float down a losing streak, or it's just that one deck that's so similar to the meta deck and you absolutely hate it because there's no originality. And before you call it, no, it's not Elixir Coherence. And no, it's not looking at meta tier lists either. And definitely not just synergy. Like I know, synergy is like really, really important in Clash Mini. I believe everyone knows that. Like pro players, content creators, everything. Well, yeah, synergy is everything in Clash Mini. But I believe like you're still missing out on that point. Ever think of full three elixir decks? Like every single content creator makes, either it's Wave Master Lob with all the three elixirs like Mini P.E.K.K.A. Swordsman, Valkyrie, Healing Ranger, and Giant Skeleton, or it's something else like Archer Queen 3 elixir with the Musketeer Giant Skeleton, Bowler Healing Ranger, and Golden Giant. All of them are very, very basic and stick to the general rules of elixir coherence. By the way, if you don't know that, I'll go over that really, really quickly. Number one rule is that you always have a 2 elixir if you have a 4 elixir in your deck. Always remember that. Another rule is you always have another 3 elixir if you have 1 3 elixir in your deck. And the last rule is pretty simple. Just don't have more than 3 4 elixirs in one deck. Now I'm going to explain some exceptions that I have found lately in more decks and more decks. It has been a pretty common strategy, but many players seem to miss it or just ignore them. Now I'm going to explain why this is really, really OP. And you might be confused at first, but here, listen. Listen very, very carefully. This strategy is used by many pro players and it's called Elixir Exception. The very reason why I named it Elixir Exception is because we always stick to these rules of Elixir Coherence, making the perfect deck where you can just use up all the elixir that you have left in your elixir tank. But let me tell you, what if these rules were less strict as the game goes by? Now listen up. Imagine you have a full 2 elixir and 4 elixir deck. Let's give it an example. A Barbarian King full 2 elixir deck, but instead of something like a miner or wizard, you have a P.E.K.K.A. in somewhere. Let's imagine that. Now, let's say Fisherman's really, really good in this meta, and you really want to fit Fisherman into your deck, but you still love this deck and you still want to play this deck. You want to keep the core principles the same. How are you going to change it? Do it anyway. Now listen, you might be thinking, 3 elixir, isn't that just bad? You're fitting a 3 elixir without another 3 elixir into a full of 2 elixir and 4 elixir stack. Now I'm going to explain why. Why this is actually very good and a very, very nice option. First of all, Fisherman. Think of all the stars that Fisherman has. You can imagine first star with the hook duration, second star with extra barbs, and third star with the fish growth. You always see it. You always see the second star being used because the other ones aren't just very optimal compared to the second one. So you often actually spend 6 elixir instead of 3 elixir in a match, which is actually pretty coherent with a 2 and 4 elixir deck as it's in the doubles and it's actually not leaking any elixir. Although it is a very big elixir investment, it is actually worth it. And if you just don't want it, just sell it. You can use it in another round or just don't use it. It's not really important to put so many minis, but it's important to know when it's an exception to use these elixir rules. Now you might be thinking, what is another one there's only Fisherman, right? Well, another one we have is Lumberjack. If you fit a Lumberjack to a full 3 elixir deck, it's actually possible. You might think it's a 2 elixir, you don't want to fit in it, but it's actually very viable. For one sole reason that the Lumberjack has 2 useful stars is because they actually go really well together, and Berserk just doesn't fit in many situations that you might need to use Berserk at all. And when you put down Lumberjack, you're probably going for the first star and the second star. Now, if you count correctly, 2 times 3, 2 stars in the Lumberjack, is actually 6 elixir in total, which completely fits in a 3 elixir deck, which makes Lumberjack actually very viable in many 3 elixir decks. And is that really it? Okay, first of all, my name is not Ant. My name is ANTT. And second of all, no, I'm going to explain one more exception rule. This rule is actually quite interesting because it doesn't just work like the Elixir Coherence. It's a very, very big exception. Imagine a game-changing mini. You fit in a deck, and you might not use it for most of your battles, but it actually works. One of the examples is actually Spirit Goblin. Spirit Goblin, although it costs 4 elixir, because its only good star is its first star, you can actually fit it in a 3 elixir deck. For the sole reason that 3 elixirs, they actually don't deal that much damage overall, and they don't do burst damages, they don't have clash or whatsoever. Although Fisherman's a clash, it's not a damage dealer clash. And there's not really a role or a mini that can actually replace Spirit Goblin. And the reason why you would want to play Spirit Goblin in this deck is because its 1 star gives it 9 damage in total. And now you might be asking, ANCT, what are you talking about? It's just 9 damage. Why are you freaking about it? Like, okay, listen. You need to listen to this very, very carefully. Now, when you play Spirit Goblin, its impact is actually stronger in the early rounds compared to the later rounds. And that's because you have more stars on enemy minis. Now, the impact changes throughout the game because heals, of course, they do exist, completely counter something left at 1 HP and being healed to the fullest. When damaged by a Spirit Goblin, imagine a mini with 10 HP just to be healed by Battle Healer. And your Spirit Goblin becomes completely useless. Now, imagine it in a different situation. In early rounds, people might not have Battle Healer here, they might not have very high HP units. What you can do with the Spirit Goblin is just send it on the first round, on that tile, which they're not going to expect from your deck, and then get completely obliterated because their only mini, or maybe their carry mini, is on the tile. This completely destroys them for one reason, that Spirit Goblin is so impactful in early rounds. Another mini might be Prince. Although Prince is not so good, he actually has a quite impactful stance without his stars. Why did you want to use these minis is because they actually win you earlier rounds and give you that nice 3-0. There's also a reason why Monk players have actually started using a Spirit Goblin instead of something like Wizard or Ice Wizard, because it gets you that nice 3-0 early. You're taking on that bet, but you're actually winning the round. It doesn't matter if Elixir Coherence or whatsoever. So after watching this video, I hope you learned something new, and just don't stick too strictly to the Elixir Coherence rules. Although they come in very, very handy, it's always nice to think again and maybe include that 2 elixir in your 3 elixir deck. I have some examples over here. One is Miner, although its Dissipate is only used most of the time and it's 4 elixir, it can still be a good 3 elixir deck investment, as you can put that Surprise or that Cleave on. Another one is, of course, Spirit Goblin, like I mentioned. Spirit Goblin just deals so much damage. Another one is Ice Wizard, as Ice Wizard is usually something like Lumberjack, only useful on 2 stars, but useless on the third one. Another one you might be thinking of is Mini P.E.K.K.A. Mini P.E.K.K.A does have that shield breaker and hack that's pretty useful, but most of the time you're still using it for the Dissipate. And of course, we still have some cheap 4 elixirs. By that, I mean Prince. Prince doesn't need any star investments compared to something like Witch, Magic Archer, P.E.K.K.A, or Elixir Wizard. Prince is the only 4 elixir that doesn't require much stars investment. It's always good to have Prince if you have a very expensive deck, yet you want a clash that is impactful to the game. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's quite different from what content I make, but hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. And I'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.